Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. We're taking a journey deep into India's prehistoric past to look at the very dawn of human expression. We are traveling back to a time long before cities, way before empires, and honestly, long before anyone had even thought up the wheel. We're going to look at those very first moments when human beings decided that, just surviving wasn't quite enough. They needed to express themselves. They wanted to tell stories and to leave a permanent mark on the world. And they pulled it off using literally the only canvas they had available, the walls of the caves they called home.
Now, before we start mapping out the specific eras of this ancient art, I've got a really fascinating mystery for you. Who actually discovered the world's first prehistoric rock canvas? If you were to ask most folks this question, their minds would probably immediately jump straight to Europe. They might think of those incredibly famous cave paintings found in France or Spain. But the actual answer to this question completely rewrites that popular narrative.
It is a huge point of pride for Indian archaeology that an archaeologist named Archibald Carlyle made the very first discovery of prehistoric rock paintings right here in India. And get this, he found them in 1867. This wasn't just some minor historical footnote. This happened a full 12 years before the legendary Altamira caves were even discovered in Spain. So India was quite literally the site of the world's first major awakening to the fact that ancient, Stone Age humans were perfectly capable of creating art.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer today. We'll start with the first human canvases, map out the discoveries across India, and explore the masterpiece cave of Bimbetka. Then we'll track the eras of Stone Age art, uncover the science of ancient paint, and finally, try to step inside the minds of early humans.
All right, part 1, the first human canvases, or as I like to call it, prehistory's diary. Think of these cave walls as basically the prehistoric equivalent of social media. It was their way to record daily life, their fears, their triumphs, and share them with the rest of their community. But to truly appreciate this, we have to define what prehistory actually means. We are talking about the distant past when there was absolutely no paper, no formal language, and no written word. No books. Because there were no written documents back then, we have very few ways of knowing how these people actually lived day to day. Sure, we can dig up old bones and stone tools, but those really only tell us so much. These drawings, however, they are a direct, unfiltered message from the past. They're our absolute best window into how early human beings survived, what they valued, and how they thought.
Moving on to part 2, mapping prehistoric Indian art, widespread discoveries. Once Carlyle made that initial breakthrough, archaeologists realized they needed to look a lot closer at the rocks right in their own backyards. And looking at this map, you can clearly see that prehistoric humans weren't just confined to one small area. We see painted shelters and caves scattered all over the subcontinent. They stretch from the Kumaon Hills up north in Uttarakhand, sweeping right through the rich Vindhya ranges of Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh, all the way down to the granite rocks of southern states like Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. It really just shows us that the urge to create art was this universal human trait across the entire landmass.
One of the most brilliant early finds is right here at the rock shelters at Lakudiyar, situated on the banks of the river Suyal in Uttarakhand. And fun fact, Lakudiyar literally translates to 1 lakh caves. Here, early humans used these really simple, almost stick-like forms to depict something deeply human, a community coming together. Notice how the figures are hand-linked, captured right in the middle of a rhythmic group dance. It goes to show that even thousands of years ago, humans were celebrating life together, and they wanted to remember it.
Okay, part 3. Bimbetka, the masterpiece cave, the absolute crown jewel of Madhya Pradesh.
While sites like Lakudiyar are absolutely incredible, the greatest canvas of them all lies in central India. It was discovered by archaeologist V.S. Wakankar back in 1957 after he trekked through these wild, completely inaccessible jungles and hills. And the sheer, staggering scale of Bimbetka is just unmatched. We are not talking about a single cave here. Bimbetka has about 800 individual rock shelters, scattered across an area of 10 square kilometers. It was essentially a sprawling prehistoric metropolis nestled right there in the forest. And incredibly, this is the part that gets me, out of those 800 rock shelters, 500 of them bear surviving prehistoric paintings. 500! That is an unbelievable volume of ancient art concentrated in one single location. Generation after generation of early humans lived here, they hunted here, and they painted here, leaving behind the most comprehensive visual record of prehistoric life in the entire country.
Just look at the imposing, naturally sheltered structure of these caves carved into the Vinya Hills. You can easily see how the overhanging rocks would provide excellent protection from the harsh sun in those heavy monsoons. The environment around here was full of fresh streams, lush forests, and abundant wildlife. It was basically the perfect, protected ecosystem for Stone Age people to live, thrive, and ultimately use these magnificent, smooth stone ceilings and walls as their permanent canvas.
Part 4. Eras of Stone Age Art. Evolution of Society.
Because Bimbetka was inhabited for such a massively long stretch of time, we can actually observe how human society was getting more complex just by comparing two distinct eras. In the older, Upper Paleolithic phase, the art featured huge, almost chaotic linear representations of animals, massive bisons, rhinos, tigers, usually drawn in dark red and green. But as time marched on into the Mesolithic era, we see this dramatic shift. The paintings become smaller, but vastly more complex. The themes multiply. The artists began painting highly detailed scenes of human community, family life, and incredibly coordinated hunting expeditions.
Check out this phenomenal Mesolithic hunting scene. I mean, this isn't just a static picture of a boar. It's basically an action movie. Look at how these figures are actively working together. They aren't just running around blindly. They're armed with barbed spears, pointed sticks, bows and arrows. Some of the paintings even show early humans using complex traps and snares to catch their prey. This represents a massive, massive leap in human storytelling and strategic thinking. They're literally showing us how they dominated their environment through teamwork and technology.
Which brings us to Part 5. The Science of Ancient Paint. Surviving Millennia.
When you look at these vibrant colors, you might be wondering, how on earth did this paint survive thousands of years of blistering heat and heavy rain? Well, the answer lies in their brilliant, intuitive chemistry. First, they sourced their colors straight from the earth. They ground specific rocks and minerals into a fine powder. Hematite, which is widely known in India as Geru, gave them a really vibrant red, while a green stone called chalcedony provided the greens. Next, they mixed this powder with water, but they were smart enough to know water alone wouldn't stick, so they added thick, sticky substances like animal fat, gum, or plant resin to act as a binder. Finally, they applied the paint using brushes made from frayed plant fibers. And the real secret? Scientists actually believe the colors stayed beautifully intact over millennia because the oxides in the minerals chemically reacted with the surface of the rocks. They essentially fused the art right into the cave wall itself.
And finally, Part 6. The Mind of Early Humans. Fear, Tenderness, and Rituals. So we know what they painted and how they painted it, but why did they paint? Take a look at these contrasting animal depictions. They really help us step inside their psychology. On one side, we've got a massive, imposing beast, and on the other, incredibly delicate, stylized animals. The Mesolithic artists were clearly obsessed with the animal kingdom. They depicted animals chasing men and men chasing animals. These contrasting images show us that while early humans deeply feared some of these powerful beasts, depicting them as huge and intimidating, they also felt a profound sense of tenderness, respect, and love for other creatures in their environment. Their art reflects a deeply emotional, nuanced relationship with the natural world around them.
And then we have one of the most puzzling yet fascinating aspects of prehistoric art: superimposition. Archaeologists have found that artists frequently painted directly over older art. At Bimbetka, there are specific spots with as many as 20 layers of paintings, just stacked right on top of one another. It really makes you wonder, why paint 20 layers on top of one another instead of just walking a few feet down the cave to find a nice blank wall? Was this a deeply sacred, special ritual space where the physical act of painting was more important than the final image? Or were different generations just returning to their ancestral home, simply editing and adding to the grand family diary? It's a mystery, but it makes these sites feel incredibly alive.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this beautifully profound quote straight from the source chapter. The rock paintings are the greatest wealth the primitive human beings of this period left behind. I think it brilliantly summarizes the enduring legacy and the immense value of these ancient visual diaries. These are not just crude drawings. They are the earliest evidence of human consciousness, of teamwork, and imagination. They are quite literally our ancestors reaching out across thousands of years to say, hey, we were here, and this is what our lives looked like.
Which leaves us with a truly fascinating question to ponder. Knowing how much we've learned from these ancient artists, if you only had natural pigments, a rock wall, and no written language, what single image would you paint today to leave a permanent record of our modern era?
What image perfectly captures what it means to be human right now, for people to discover in 10,000 years? Think about that for a second. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep exploring the history hidden all around us.